Okay, so I'm Tanya Caines. This is a presentation, so you're behind on your paperwork. I'll just give you a brief little overview, a little background about myself. So you can read, I'm not going to go through everything that's on this screen because it's a lot, but you can read it for yourself. But you just see that I did graduate from NYU. I've been working for the New York City Department of Education for 18, almost 19 years now. Um, I spent the first 10 years working with junior high school and high school individuals, all who have a diagnosis of intellectual disabilities. And then after that, I switched into general education. And I work with elementary school children now from 3K all the way to fifth grade. So I have a lot of experience in school-based therapy. I also do have experience with early intervention, worked in early intervention for many years, providing services, and I had a specialization with behavioral feeding students and also worked as an adjunct supervisor for various schools in New York, various colleges in New York. I've supervised graduate student clinicians. I provide guidance and assist with clinical paperwork, and I was also an adjunct lecturer for NYU. So I have a lot of experience in terms of academia. I have experience in the schools, and I'm also Orton Gillingham classroom educator and associate level trained. So I have a good amount of experience to give you some information in a lot of different areas. You can go to the next slide, please. So this next slide is really just about us checking in. Okay, so I really like to do a mood meter to read the feelings in the room. I like to see how you're feeling before we dive in. So I'll just explain what it is. It was something that really I found through my son's school. His school always does a mood meter before they start any PTA meeting. And I think it's great because sometimes we come into the room, we come into a space with emotions and feelings that have nothing to do with what this meeting is about. It's, whatever happened to you in the day. So just so you can center yourself, red means upset or angry, yellow is excited, green is happy, and blue is you're feeling a little down right now. And the face in the middle just means you're feeling neutral. So if you can just tell me in the chat really quickly which one you're identifying with right now. I'll let you know. I'm identifying as I'm like excited and neutral at the same time. So that's where I am. How are you guys feeling right now? Okay, green. That's a good place to be. Good place to be. Okay, well, everyone is feeling green. That's good. Maybe because we're done with work for the day. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe because Martin Luther King Day is coming up. So maybe we're feeling pretty calm about that. Okay, that's good. All right. So I just want you to know that some of the conversations may be triggering to some. We may touch upon things that might bring up other feelings, and I want you to know that this is a safe space. And we are agreeing, we need to agree that this is a place where there's no judgment. Okay. We might talk about things that may trigger some feelings in you. So I'm pledging right now that I'm allowing everyone to feel the way that they feel without any negative thought or care. And I hope that you feel the same. And if you do, can you please type safe place in the chat? Please type safe space in the chat. Because we all just need to know that this is a place where we can talk about whatever. It's not going anywhere from here. So I'm glad that we can see it's a safe space. And thank you guys for typing that in. We're all on the same page. Okay, so since we're all on the same page, I want to ask a question about who's in the room. So I do know that there are some people who are in the room that are not in speech pathology, and I appreciate you guys for coming. I thank you so much for coming and showing up and just being there to support. But I know that there are some educators and those who are in school who are in the room. So I really want to know how many of you in the room are in school right now for speech pathology? How many of you are like graduate student clinicians? How many in the room right now are graduate students? Oh, graduate students. Okay. So then that means we have working SLPs out there. So how many of you are working SLPs? How many of you have been working in the field for like 2 to 5 years? Second year SLP. Oh, CF. Yeah, I remember those days. I remember those days well. Okay, so we have a second year SLP, we have CF. Okay, how many of you have been working for about 5 years? 2 to 5 years. Okay, no one? Okay. 5 to 10 years? 5 to 10 year SLP. Oh, that means we have a lot of seasoned people in the room. Okay, so we have some new students, but then we have some people who are really seasoned. Okay. And what area do you work in? Are you a medical SLP? Are you a school-based SLP? Private practice SLP? Where are you working right now? I just kind of want to know who I'm talking to so I can give better information. Okay, school-based. So this is definitely going to help. Okay, good. So this will definitely, it'll give you some information on how to get yourself out of a bind when you have realized that you're behind on your paperwork. Okay, great. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just my contact information. These are all the ways that you can find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook under the same name, Kit Language Literacy. And you can see the, I don't know, am I pointing right here? Kit Language and Literacy, that is my business. There's also my email address that's listed. And if you press that QR code, if you scan that QR code, you'll be able to reach my link tree. And the link tree has all the up-to-date information about all of the things that I've done in terms of publications, any type of video correspondence, anything that you might want to see about me, you'll find it on the link tree. So feel free to take a picture of this or scan. And I'll also put this up at the end just in case you want the information again. Okay. Okay, next slide. And I just want to say that if you're able to hang in all the way to the end, I promise that you'll get a great treat at the end. There's definitely, some free things that come along with the benefit of attending these things, right? So just hang in there, and I promise that I won't keep you long. That's actually one of the things. Sorry for the interruption. That interruption was an alarm, and that's one of the one of the tips I'm going to give you a little bit later as we get to talking about the actual paperwork. So next slide, please. That was right on time. I didn't plan it. I really didn't. Okay, so story time with Miss Benita. So if you are old enough to remember In Living Color, that means I'm a woman of a certain age, but if you're old enough to remember In Living Color, then you will remember Miss Benita. Miss Benita was a character on In Living Color, and she was always very funny to me. And so I've remembered her, and I always put her or I put Miss Sophia in any workshop that I do because I just think they're funny. And I always have a story. Students who know me, they're like, you always have a story. And I do. So I have a story for you guys. So not too long ago, I did a series on my Instagram page, and the series was called So You're Behind on Your Paperwork. And so you would think that I have it all together because I did a whole, series on it, right? I do not. So in full transparency, 2 weeks ago, guess who was behind on her paperwork? Not even 2 weeks ago. Let me be really transparent. Today, who was behind on her paperwork? Me. And I just got caught up on my paperwork today, actually, from a couple of days in this week, but still, right? I was behind on my paperwork. And there's so many things that happened to me specifically in the beginning of the school year that kind of threw me off my game. I was in a car accident earlier in the school year, like literally the day before school started, I was in a car accident. Um, I've been working a lot more. I'm currently in school. I have a lot of different responsibilities. And so, I feel like I started off the school year in such a deficit, right? And so I feel like I've been playing a lot of catch up, but I know that that's not what I'm saying is not something that we all haven't been through, right? There are times when there are certain school years where you are going through so much. It's like, whoa, I have this going on with family and this going on with work, and I have all of these different commitments and responsibilities that all seem to tie in, and it kind of snowballs into effect where you're having a lot of difficulty catching up. But because I know my strategies, I was able to get back on track. And like I said, I did have some paperwork that was not finished up until today, but I caught back on it. I said, I'm not going into next week with the same paperwork from this week. And I was able to complete it and catch up. So I used some of my strategies that I'm going to share with you, and they really just helped me to get back on track. So has this ever happened to anyone? Am I alone in being a person who has fallen behind on paperwork more than once? Has that happened to anyone? Just, put a hand up if it's happened to you before. So I don't feel like I'm by myself because it can't just be me. Okay, perfect. So it's not just me. Okay. This is something that happens to us all the time. And so we have to recognize what tips and strategies we can use to quickly get back on track. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this great quote with you because I feel like this quote is very helpful and it's a great reminder. I think that, you know, because we're educators, we are expected to know everything. And especially when you're in speech pathology, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, like, oh, well, you're a speech pathologist, you should be a great public speaker. No, speech pathology is my job. I teach others speech, language, and communication. That is my job, but that doesn't mean that that translates to me. I actually, full transparency, I don't like public speaking at all. Even the fact that I'm doing this, I had to kind of like give myself a little pep talk before I got on. I've done these a couple of times now, and I used to teach online, so you would think I would be more comfortable. And I am comfortable with Zoom in terms of the logistics of it, but I still get a little nervous, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? But anyway, there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything, and there's something to learn from each interaction. Every time you come in contact with a student, every time you come in contact with another educator, you are learning. So I think that we have to remember as educators that teaching is a journey, and we have to be open to learning and growing. Some of us, as we get further along in the speech walk and the speech pathology journey, may feel like they can't learn. I have come across people who have years in before me and behind me who say like, oh, these new kids coming out now, they don't have anything to teach me, I don't want to hear them. And I think that that's further from the truth. You really should always be tuning in and listening to what I learn. A lot when I have students, graduate level students, they teach me so much because I get to learn the current terminology and all the new research that's coming out through them. And then I take kind of the information that they give me and then I go and do research of my own. So I don't think you should ever stop learning. It's just a great way to promote a growth mindset, right? We want to have a growth mindset. And that's something that I've learned recently, you know, that there's a growth mindset. And then there's the mindset that's not really growing. And I want to always have a growth mindset because that means I'm always learning and evolving and educating myself. So I think that that's something that we all should kind of strive for. All right, next slide. Let me take a little sip of water. Okay, so now we need to talk about why are we falling behind on the paperwork? Why is the paperwork piling up? And why are we falling behind on our deadlines? Now, I listed some of those reasons here why we're falling behind. Of course, there are also issues that may come across, and that might be specific to you or your site. Those things are like your unfamiliarity with systems, right? So if you are in a New York City Department of Education school and you're just starting out and you're given CCC where you have to do your encounter attendance, well, maybe you don't know CCC and you don't know how to use it. Maybe you weren't given clear guidelines. Maybe they're telling you to do those. A lot of time they tell you to do those online tutorials. Not everybody is good online, learning online for something that they have to do online, right? So some people actually need someone to sit down next to them and actually go through it step by step. Maybe you may have unclear expectations as to what is expected of you, right? All of these things that are listed here are very tedious and time consuming. When you are first starting out, writing IEPs is no easy feat, especially if you have a speech only IEP. Now, if you've never encountered a speech only IEP, maybe you're in District 75. And honestly, for 10 years of my career, I never encountered a speech only IEP because I was in District 75. And every student in my school had a diagnosis. So I never encountered anything like that. But when I went into general ed, I was like, excuse me, what now? I have to write the entire IEP myself. I have to do everything. Like I have to get the information from the teacher. I have to coordinate everything. And so I was stressed out. So of course you're going to fall behind during those times, especially if you have a speech only IEP, because everything is on you and you have to have enough time to get that done on top of all the other work you have to do, right? And like I also put here, being pulled in different directions at work. If you are someone, so I'm someone who, we all have different personality styles. I'm not the SLP that the kids don't know. I'm the SLP, so I'm the one I'm the one who hosts the spelling bee. I'm the narrator for the spelling bee. I've been the announcer for different assemblies. I've done the choir in the school, so I'm pretty involved. So the kids, I have students that know me that don't get speech just because I'm kind of in different places. So when you do things like that, you will be pulled in different directions. I sit on the pupil personnel team. I'm a part of, oh my goodness, like conducting the safety drills and stuff, the response team. So I'm being pulled in different directions. So yeah, sometimes you can fall behind because your hands are in different things, right? But I want you to know that these issues can really push us to a place where you can feel overwhelmed. And you have to think about how you prioritize your task and in what order. Everything is important, but it's just about how are you going to really prioritize what you need to do. Okay? So let's start talking about how we can do that. So the first thing I want to talk about is let's get organized. So next slide, please. Okay, so we need to get organized. We know that the overwhelm has set in. You know that you're behind on your paperwork. Now, what are we going to do? We need to figure out how we can get organized. Like I said, we need to think about prioritizing your tasks. How are you going to prioritize your task? You need to start to discuss what areas are more urgent than others. So if I know that I have a speech only IEP, well, let's take me for example. I do have a speech only IEP that's due in May. Okay. It's at the end of May. Yes, I kind of want to start thinking about it and knowing that, okay, you have to schedule this speech only IEP. But if I have an IEP that's due next week, do I really need to focus all my attention on the speech only IEP that's due in May? No, because I have an IEP that's due next week and we're in January, right? I still have time I can do that piece by piece. I have a lot of time in May, but January, and I mean, next week is literally next week. So I have to prioritize. So you need to think about, do you have any specific deadlines for work? If you have an IEP motivated task that needs to be completed in 2 weeks rather than 30 days, right? That just goes back to what I just said. You don't need to stress yourself as much for something that's due in a month from now, as opposed to something that's due next week or the week after. So I would start by working on date specific tasks. And if you can get those done first, it would make more sense, right? So if the IEP is due next week, then that's the first thing you focus on. You may have to think about how you're going to plan that out in your day to day, but that's the first thing that you should focus on. And after you get those specific date tasks done, then you can review all of the rest of the tasks that you need to do for the month. So can any of your tasks wait, or are they all tasks that need to be done now? So if I have the IEP, the speech only IEP that's due in May, I have the IEP that's due next week. And maybe I need to write a letter. Someone needs a social security document, like a progress note. And that progress note is due February 1st. Okay, so now I'm going to prioritize. I can do the IEP first because that's pressing. It's due next week. Then I'm going to focus on that document that needs to go to Social Security because it's on February that it's the due date is. And then I'm going to start working on my speech only IEP because that's further on in May. Okay. Now you might be saying to yourself, I have a date specific task, but how am I even going to start writing this, right? I don't even I know that this IEP is coming up for instance, and I don't even know how to start working on this task. There are so many ways that you can manage your time effectively. Okay. And let's talk about some of the skills that have really helped me. I've started using time blocks, and time blocks have been very helpful for me. Now, time blocking is a great way to break up an activity into short, manageable slots. Sometimes I feel like I will get overwhelmed if I know there's a lot of things to be done. And I'm like, okay, I have this IEP. I know I have to write it. I need to come up with goals. How am I going to do that? So if I think about 10-minute blocks of time, that works great for me. So 10 minutes might seem like a short amount of time, but I will schedule myself to work on this particular, let's say, IEP for 10 minutes a day, right? So each day I'll sit down and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. So for instance, if you look at this picture right on the left, you'll see that that's a time block. That's from my actual calendar where I schedule, okay, I'm going to work on this student's IEP. And then at 10, so from 10:15 to 10, actually, that's a 15-minute block. Just caught that. But you can do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however it works for you in your day. So I wrote 10:15, I'm going to work on this student's IEP. And then at 10:30, I was going to work on CSIS for these two students, right? Now, it may seem like a short amount of time, and it is. It goes very quick. However, it keeps you very focused on getting what you said you needed to get done in a short slot. What I usually do is I'll put like a little alarm that will ding so I know, okay, that's it. And now you need to move on to something else. It seems short, but you would be surprised at how much information you can get done by the end of the week. You would be finished with that IEP. You might even be finished with the IEP before the end of the week because you're spending very short spurts of time focusing on one particular task. It's a way that I don't overwhelm myself because sometimes if I look at the big picture, I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, I got this IEP to do. I don't want to do it, because does it happen to you guys? Let me just sidebar. Does it happen to you guys where you get overwhelmed or you get to a point where you don't want to write anymore? Does that happen to anybody else? Where you're like, I'm not writing anymore. I've done all this thesis. I had 15 kids in a day. I wrote all of this, and now I need to write an IEP, and I don't want to. And like I'm on strike. I'm not doing it. Does that happen to anybody else? I'm the only one. Okay, I think it's just me. I do that all the time. I go on strike with myself. I don't know who I think that I am that I have the right to go on strike. Thank you, Cassandra, because it's not just me. I do these little like I'm not doing it. I have a little temper tantrum. I'm not doing this. I'm tired of writing this. I don't want to write anymore. Like I get a little attitude when I know that a big part of my job is to write. But anyway, back to back to the time block. So I really feel like if you feel like 10 minutes is too small, you can always change the amount of time. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes. Like you see in that picture, I did a 15-minute block, but that depends on your schedule for the day. You may want to take your prep period and maybe you do time blocks in your entire prep period. Maybe you have to work on an IEP. Maybe you're planning for your lessons for, this particular student. Maybe you need to go downstairs and make copies. So you can, plan that in 10 to 15 or 20-minute blocks, and you can change that time so it can be beneficial to you, but it can, be very successful. So like you heard my alarm go off earlier. That second picture is showing you that I do a lot of setting alarms. So I have a really good friend who's also a speech pathologist. We went to school together, and it used to drive me crazy that all you would hear is like alarms going off. You're talking and the alarms are going off all the time. I don't think I've ever been with her that alarms are not going off. It used to drive me crazy, and it doesn't drive me crazy anymore because I finally got the method to her madness. Setting alarms is a really easy way to schedule an activity, and it makes you stay organized. It's a way to really stay intentional. So if you look at that second picture in the middle, it says right in there, work on such and such as IEP, right? Because that's a way that I know, like, this is a block of time. I'm going to work on this IEP, excuse me. So it's going to go off. My phone is going to ding. It's an actual auditory sound that I'm hearing. Oh, I got to get up, stop whatever I'm doing, and I need to work on that IEP. I do pair time blocks and the alarms together. Okay. So that might be something that works for you. I hear that auditory sound. I have to stop what I'm doing and get started on this particular task. Okay. And you have to figure out what day works best for you to tackle the work. I don't know your schedule. We all have different schedules, and our schedules change so much. So you'll have to figure out what times work best for you. Like I said, if you wanted to plan it on your prep time, if you wanted to schedule it after work, I don't know how that works for you, but you can do it however works best for you. So the timers also on the right hand side, you're going to see there's a picture there. That's a picture of a timer, okay? And timers can be a great alternative. You set the timer for a specific amount of time, you work during this time. That's it. Again, another way, it's an alarm, the timer, all of these three can go together. You can do the time block, timer, and alarm all within the same block of time, okay? You set the duration, and that's when it goes off. So all of these strategies can be helpful. It's just up to you to determine how that works in your schedule and if it will work for you, okay? So let's go to the next slide. We're winding down. We're winding down. Okay, so this is the let's get, I'm sorry, I just read, Cassandra, I just saw your message. I slammed my laptop and walk away. We are kindred spirits because I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I have a little tantrum and I just like push it away and I walk away, and I usually go talk to a coworker, or take a lap around the building or something, because I just can't do it anymore. Sometimes I'm like, that's it for the day and I'm done, and see you tomorrow, because I'm just not dealing with it. I just don't want to do any more writing. And I'll talk to you guys about something else that I do. I don't know if I put it in this particular I'm not sure if I put it in this presentation, but if I didn't, I'll make sure that I mention it after we finish this next slide. So this is all about getting organized. Okay, we still talked about, we took an alarm, we did our timers, and we did our time block, right? And so now we have to think about how else can we continue to be organized. So you can make lists and you can make checklists for yourself. And when you complete a task, you can check it off or erase it. So there's a third picture right here. I don't know if you can see it. This third picture right here, if you see, there's an eraser. It's a white eraser. And then there's a plastic board that says set up Google Classroom. That is my little, I guess like a notepad on my desk that sits there. It's plastic. You write on it with a dry erase marker, and then you just wipe it off. I love that so much. I think I got that. It was on Amazon, but it really gives me great satisfaction to see it sitting on my desk every day. And then I feel so cool when I like just do a little check or I get to erase it off. I feel very accomplished. I feel very grown up. I feel like, oh, I got something done today, right? And even if it's just one little thing, I got something done today. You see that it said set up Google Classroom. We all have had to set up our Google Classrooms every year. We set them up by a certain date. Excuse me. So that's what I did, and I felt very accomplished when I got a chance to wipe that off. So I also have a planner that I created specifically for speech pathologists, but really anyone could use it because it's really a planner to get you organized. But it does target a lot of our organizational and goal-oriented needs. So I'll talk about that in some slides that are coming up, but I use my own product. It helps keep me on track. You can use a calendar, or you can use a planner to help you do the same. In full transparency, I have my planner. That planner goes back and forth with me home. And then I also have a desk planner. So I have a large desk planner that sits on my desk, and I write down very specific things. So like if I have IEP meetings, I have the PPT meeting that I have to go to. If I have to, like I said, do spelling bee, there's an assembly coming up, all these different things. I have to keep track of it. And I am someone who needs multiple ways of keeping track of things, because when I get overwhelmed, I forget. And so it's happened many times where I've missed things, missed appointments. I try not to make it happen very often, but there's sometimes when things do fall through the cracks. I hate that it happens. And that's why I'm trying for you not to be like me and not have things fall through the cracks like they have done for me. Okay, so that's the planner. And as you can see, this top left picture is a copy of the cover page, the Effective SLP Planner. And directly under it is what it kind of looks like on the inside. I don't want to show you one of my planners because they're disgusting, because I'm scrabbling all over. I've been very intentional with using planners. Oops, sorry, I just dropped my water. So sorry. So I've been really intentional with using my planners. I think creating my own planner made me stay focused on a planner. Before, I was someone who would use a planner and then, I'd start using it, be really gung-ho, put it down, maybe not using it again for a month or two, and then the whole year would go by and it's like, oops, I only used it for like 3 months. Creating my own planner and creating a planner that's really effective for speech pathologists has really made me get intentional about using a planner and realizing that I really need one, and I need it daily to just keep me on track. And not just me, I also use my planner I have a son. We have families, we have things, commitments. I'm in a sorority. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So that also helps keep me on track of where I'm supposed to be, because I might have to go to a meeting, or I might, need to be at a community service event, and I need to remember and be there. So it helps keep me on track. So also, when it comes to encounter attendance is something that can be very overwhelming if you're not tech savvy. if you, like I said before, if you are tech savvy, then that's great, right? You can kind of catch up really quickly. But if you're not tech savvy, first, before you even try to start putting in your attendance, you need to learn the system. We have CSIS here in New York, but I'm sure other states use a different encounter attendance system. So you still need to have a certain level of tech savviness to navigate these systems. So if you are having trouble accessing the site or you need advising, I said earlier that there are online tutorials. So maybe you're someone you're okay with learning from an online tutorial. So you can learn how to use CSIS from that. There are also YouTube videos out there that show you step by step how to access the system. So just go look at YouTube, type in CSIS encounter attendance, and it'll pop up. And like I said, CSIS does offer tutorials themselves. Excuse me, if you look, they will pop up. Sometimes you'll get emails from your supervisor, and then other times the messages will come up in CSIS itself when you first come in on the home page. On the bottom left side, there's usually a place where it comes up, and then you'll know that these different tutorials are being offered and what time. Sometimes you can pop in and out, so you can really teach yourself. I would definitely utilize the online tutorials and YouTube videos. Don't wait for someone at work to show you. Everyone is busy, so you don't know if they have as much time. So now that we're talking about CSIS and we've talked about encounter attendance, I also want to talk about data collection. One second. I have to drink a little bit of water. So I want to talk about data collection. There are many different ways to do data collection. I remember when I was in District 75, we were never told that we can't do, we were never told that we were encouraged, right? But they never told us that we can't use a particular type of data collection. You could kind of do whatever kind of data collection you wanted to, okay? And so there are many sites out there. There are many sites nowadays where you can come up with data collection. I know when I first started, there was nothing. You just had whatever, techniques you might have come out of grad school with, or maybe you saw someone else using something that was really innovative. And so you use that. But now there's so many sites. So some sites that I've seen are SLP Toolkit. I know that one is really popular. Everyday Speech is another one. And there's SLP Now. And they all help you with data collection. And they can even help you with assistance for goal planning. So if you're someone who needs help in that area, that might be where you need to focus. So I think we all have different ways of using data collection. For me, I keep a book. My book looks like chicken scratch. It's a lot of stuff all over it because I have a lot of notations for myself and ways to keep track of how many trials I've done and what is needed. But I do use Post-it notes. So I use Post-it notes for many different reasons. I've done, if you've gone on my Instagram, you've seen that I've even used Post-it notes within therapy. And I did use Post-it notes within therapy today as I was asking the student WH questions, and I had the WH questions listed on a Post-it note. Each Post-it note held a different question, and they had to take the index cards to find the answers, to match the answers. So I've used Post-it notes to remind myself of different things, and I also have used it to track goals. So for instance, if I had a student who had an articulation goal, so let's say I had a student who was targeting D in the initial position of bisyllabic words, I could use a Post-it note to keep track of the data. I could write the name of the student on the top, and I could write the goal, and then just use a quick plus minus to track how many instances the student produced the target sound. So it could be something really quick. You just have to make sure that if you're doing something like that, you can keep track of your Post-it note, because Post-it notes, as great as they are small and are easy to be lost. And so you don't want that to happen, that you went through all the trouble of coming up with the Post-it note and writing all the information and now it's lost. I tend to keep my information in a book, but I have used Post-it notes in the past as a way to help myself with data collection. And I also want to talk about scripts, right? So Terry, do you have the access to the PowerPoint, the presentation? Because I want to be able to show them the script on the page. So I use these scripts. I create these scripts for myself to help me with my session notes because it's a really quick way to be able to show, like, hey, this is what I wanted to be able to quickly take this information and pop it into CSIS. You have to be careful when you're using scripts. You need to remember that you are not copying and pasting. I'm not copying and pasting people's information. I have scripts for many different things, and then I'll go in and write extra things. So the scripts help me to remember to include pertinent information. So I always like to start off with, let's say, Alex, and then I'll put was engaged and attentive to therapy session presented, or showed intermittent attention to task presented, right? So that's usually how I start off. It gives a blanket statement as how the child presented within therapy. Now, if it's a behavioral student, I'm writing more, right? So I'm not going to stop there, but that's kind of like my script that I start with. It also helps me to get straight to the point with writing session notes. It's a fill in the blank form that I created to optimize on my time. And you would fill in the areas that are blank with the student's name, the behaviors presented, and the activities that you targeted during the session. And then there are places where you could underline or circle the types of prompting provided. I actually have that script that's listed on my PayHip site. So if anyone's interested, I'm going to put the information that you can always check that out. Excuse me. And you could take this information and put it right into your encounter attendance system, or if you had a data management system. I've also done text to speech. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I do text to speak when I get into my stubborn modes and I don't want to do any work like I was talking about before, and I don't want to write anymore. I will do text to speak. So what I do is I open up my phone, I open up my email, and I start typing. I'm speaking the session notes that I took for the day. So if it's, let's say Sammy was engaged in attentive to therapy session presented, he answered 4 out of 6 what questions within a comprehension activity with verbal and visual prompts and cues. I'm speaking it into my phone. That way I don't have to type and I'm still inputting the information. When I'm done for that whole day of saying all the kids that I had for the day, I email myself. So now the information is actually already written. I don't have to type it, and then all I have to do is copy and paste. That is a trick that I use. I used it today. That's how I was able to do 4 days of CSIS that I was backlogged on, so that I could actually get over my hump. And that's the trick I use to get over the hump of not wanting to write, because I just go through moments where I don't want to, and I'm stubborn in my mind with that. And so that text to speech, excuse me, has really been a godsend for me, to help me get over that little temper tantrum I'm having. And you could use any platform to take notes, right? Like I said, you could use your phone. Well, let me just preface it by saying, when I say you could use your phone, I'm talking about text to speech. I'm not talking about actually using your phone in the session. Text to speech is something I do after I've done all my sessions for the day and I don't have any students in the room, and then I'm using my phone just to input information that I've already written down. You can use Microsoft Word, you could use a Google Doc, you can use Canva, whatever platform you'd like to take notes, you really can, because they don't tell us that we have to use a particular platform. As long as we get the notes in, what is the word that they use? Extemporaneously. I believe that's what they say. Doesn't always happen like that, but all right. So just going back over all the things that we talked about. We talked about organizing ourselves. We talked about the reasons we fall behind. We really talked about all those timers and getting ourselves together, or how would we get ourselves together with data collection, excuse me. And now we're going to talk about don't forget yourself. Okay, next slide, please, Sari. Thank you so much. So now that we've put all those things in place, we have to remember ourselves. Work will always be there. So you try not to beat yourself up about it. I have done, like I said, I talked about, the So You're Behind on Your Paperwork series on my Instagram page. And one of the last things that I posted is, and you leave it there and you close your door and say, deuces, see it later. Because paperwork is always going to be there. Paperwork doesn't go anywhere, right? Um, that's just paperwork. It's always going to be waiting for you, and there's nothing you could do about that. Paperwork is always there. So sometimes you just have to say, hey, I'll pick it up tomorrow, or I'll pick it up next week if it's the weekend, and that's it. So you really have to develop a good attitude about it. You really have to try to, when you leave work, it's done. When you come back to work, you pick it up again. And that's one thing I could say that really helps you to survive as long as I have within the DOE. You have to learn how to let it go. You have to set clear boundaries of what you will do and what you won't do. That's something I've set very early in my career at the DOE. I have coworkers who will say like, "Oh, I know I can't call you on a Saturday because to help me see you on Monday, sis. I don't I don't want to talk." That's just me. Now we all set your own boundaries, but for me, I'm not, no, talk to you about it on Monday, 8 o'clock. See you then. I don't want to, I have a life outside, and I have other things that I need to be devoted to. And so I'm very particular about my time when it comes to work. And so I guess I reclaim my time all the time when it comes to the DOE and my job. So I really think that you really need to focus on self care. That's something that I've talked a lot about in all of the different presentations I've done, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. Self care or self presence, right, is so important to you because we're no good if we aren't whole and okay. And I've come to realize that self care really comes in many different forms. It's very subjective and it's very specific and personal to each person. You really need to think about what brings you joy and what brings you peace. Speech pathology is a very demanding job. You have to take care of yourself first. Speech pathology is a job where people are burning out left and right. There are so many different articles and news report and even research that's being done as we speak all the time about speech pathology and how people are burnt out. And so we really need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. So I did put a couple of pictures to focus on what might bring you joy and what might bring you peace. One of the pictures I put there was maybe someone meditating and doing some exercise. That's one of the things that really helps me. Another thing I put is journaling. Now, I can be completely honest and say that I have not always been a consistent journaler, just the same way I wasn't consistent with the calendar and the planner, but these days I'm a lot better at journaling than I used to be. And I also put a picture of, and I attended a retreat in Aruba last year for the caring nurse practitioner, Karen, who's actually on. And it was really great. And I had a room that overlooked the ocean and it was beautiful. And it was such a way to just be at peace with myself and take some time to reflect and to get myself right. And I realized that I'm someone who needs to take a vacation every couple of months because I get out of whack and I kind of need to like, get myself back on track. So, you need to find what works for you, what type of self-care works for you and stick to it. Make sure you do it as regularly as you can because speech again is a very difficult job. It's not for the faint of heart, but you definitely need to find ways to center yourself. So, you guys have made it to the end, and thank you so much for sticking with me. Thank you for being here and staying tuned in for this entire talk. So, because you guys all were here and you stuck here with me, everyone is going to get 5 ways to start your day. That's a little quick blurb that I'm sending out, as well as a smart care worksheet to help you along as you plan out your self-care journey. It's really the 5 ways to start your day is really going to help you to prioritize how you start your day at work. And the Smart Care worksheet is going to help you focus on yourself and figure out what those self-care things are that you really need to focus on for you, right? Everybody has something different, so you need to find your own. So the worksheet is going to help you to come up with those things. And I wanted to offer you a discount for the effective SLP planner. So what I'll do is I'll have that link put in the bio. I'm sorry, I'll drop that in the chat. And it's a dateless planner. So this is my planner. It's the effective SLP planner. And this planner can really help you with organization and self-care. It has a place where you can also do that SMART goal list. So you're going to get that SMART goal list that I'm sending out to you. It's also in the planner. There's a place for schedule building. There's a place where you can sit and actually write out the contact caregiver information for all of your students there. There's motivating songs at the beginning of each week and quotes that are going to get you through. And so there's a lot of goodies in there for you guys to really help you as you're planning and navigating your day-to-day at work. So everyone will receive a 25% discount if you order and you use the code SISTAS, SISTAS, between now and Valentine's Day. And I will make sure that I place that in the chat. And I just wanted to just reiterate it again, all my information. I'm under KIT Language and Literacy, spelled all together, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can also find me on Linktree, and my email address is kitlanguageandliteracy@gmail.com. And I think I just put my camera off by mistake. Sorry. So kitlanguageandliteracy@gmail.com. And thank you so much for attending. And I really appreciate you guys for coming and listening to what we can do to really help all of us, right? Because it's not just this is something that happens to all of us. We all get behind on paperwork, and I really hope that I've been able to help you find some strategies. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'm here. Feel free to ask.